As a Navy chaplain in Afghanistan, I saw firsthand what happens in a place that does not enjoy religious freedom. I was at a forward operating base in the mountains one day, and I'd been there before, and working with the soldiers there, they have interpreters, people from the local population who assist. And one day, when no one else was around, this interpreter found his way into where I was staying in a hut, basically, and came over and asked me for a Bible. And so I gave him one of the Bibles. We give the soldiers a very small Bible with a camouflage cover, and he took it and he quickly concealed it in his garb and walked out. Later, I went to approach him thinking, well, I'm going to tell him a little bit about the Bible. And as soon as he saw me, he turned and he walked in the other direction. And then it was clear to me, it reminded me that he is in a place where just to have a Bible, to be a Christian, would subject oneself to persecution or even death.
Religious freedom is that internal liberty that enables us to choose to follow God's way. Religious liberty is so very important because it is the internal capacity that we have to choose the good and reject evil. It's the capacity we have to follow God's way.
I think what is most special to me about America is the richness and the diversity with people coming from all over the world who bring beautiful facets of their own cultures and experiences, but at the same time meld into this country which is like no other. And it causes, I think, a certain kind of dynamism and opportunity and entrepreneurship, and the kind of freedoms we enjoy make the United States just unique among nations in the world.
I was born in Cojimal, a small town east from Havana. I was born just 2 years before Fidel Castro took power, so all my education was based on the education of the communist regime and their ideology, and of course I've learned Marxism, Leninism and everything. And I really believe even that God did not exist. I didn't know God before.
The Catholic faith, the Catholic Christian faith, is a gift from God, and it's very important to be able to practice that freely. In other words, to pray and to teach, to live the gospel message, the message of the good news of salvation in Jesus Christ, and to share that with others.
When I was 17 years old, I heard God calling me to the missions, and at 19, I went to Ethiopia for the first. In Ethiopia, you're not allowed to say that you're a missionary, because if you say that, you know, it's not legal for the country to have missionaries work in the country, and it's a very strong military country, and so a lot of times people would just disappear. You would never know what happened to them. In one case, when the first year I was in Ethiopia, I had a very good friend, and all of a sudden he wasn't there. I thought, what happened to him? Well, he came back 5 weeks later. He showed up, and he told me what had happened, that he had been arrested for wanting to have, he was sitting on the lawn, and they were having a peaceful protest, and he said he wasn't even a part of it, but they wanted, and the government came and began shooting people, began arresting people, and he was lucky that he was arrested. He was not killed. They put him into the political prison where he was forced to be naked and do different things on the hot ground, lay down, do push-ups, all these things, and he said every day they'd throw them just scraps of bread, nothing else to eat. So he was that way for 5 weeks. A lot of people live that way for 20 years. No one ever knows about them. No one could ever do anything to try to change their situation. That's just where they are.
It's important for people to understand that freedom of religion is something that we shouldn't take for granted. Now, we think we're in America and everything is fine and we have all of our rights secured. Well, we really don't. People don't realize how fragile religious freedom is.
I think the framers of the Constitution were very wise to put the most important freedoms first. And so among them is the freedom of religion, that the government would not establish any religion, but nor would it stand in the way of the free exercise of anyone's faith.
The Constitution was given to us in 1787. And some of the founders and those who were going to approve the Constitution were concerned that some of our freedoms might be forfeit to a federal government. Madison went right back and he said, okay, I'm going to put in writing the guarantees that are given to not just the state, but to the people of the state. And so you get the first 10 amendments, which we call the Bill of Rights. That's in 1792.
In the scriptures, for example, in Romans chapter 8, St. Paul tells us that the glorious freedom of the children of God is one of God's greatest gifts to us. In other words, it's the capacity to choose to have a relationship with God and to practice faith in such a way that we grow in our relationship with God.
You're going to encounter free will when you, first of all, you look at the Old Testament, and right away, right off the bat, where do you see free will? Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve had a free will, didn't they? They didn't make the right choice, and therefore, when you make a wrong choice using your free will, then you suffer the consequences.
God is always there. He has reached out to humanity in the Old Testament and New through Abraham and the prophets and Moses, and of course in a distinctive way, in a complete way, in His Son Jesus Christ. He's reached out to the human race. Well, we have to respond to that. And the free will to be able to do that has to be protected.
Governments can do things through their practices that make it more difficult for people to gather to worship, and they can also do things that are discriminatory against those who are known to be adherents to a certain religion.
When people today talk about freedom from religion, that's totally incorrect. And a lot of people want to go that route today, freedom from religion, meaning that religion should only be contained in a church building, and it would have no effect on society. That is not the intention of the founders, nor is it a Christian concept of what religion should be, and it's certainly not a Catholic concept.
What can we do to foster our own freedom of religion and the freedom of religion of others? And I would say, first of all, it encompasses living our faith more fully.
Come in contact with Christ, and Christ lights up people's lives. He shows them things they never imagined for themselves and for the world. And then you know what happens then? People say, I want that.
Take as much time as possible to know Jesus, because once you know Him, you love Him, and once you love Him, you do everything for Him.
Develop a stronger personal relationship with Jesus Christ in Mass, adoration, rosary, scripture study, private prayer, meditation. And as we grow in that personal relationship with Jesus Christ, we find that we are really enjoying what St. Paul calls in chapter 8 of Romans, the glorious freedom of the children of God.
The God who gave us life gave us liberty at the same time, and therefore He recognized that our liberty was rooted in the divine. And liberty rooted in divine is then implanted in us. And then because of God's great love for us and His great respect for humanity, He gave us the freedom to make our own choices. And then He also gives us divine guidance through Scripture and through natural law. Natural law. The way a thing is made is the way the thing should act. And when we act in consort with the natural law and with sacred Scripture, that's when humanity is at its best.